The following is my conversation with Jason Geroux. Jason is somebody that JT actually reached out to before the Last Man Standing race for some ideas on and strategy, thoughts heading into the race. And for a couple of strangers reaching out to him, he was very responsive and willing to give us some very good advice. Met him actually at the Last Man Standing race. We talked about this in the podcast, but he gave us one of my favorite moments of the race. His positivity, telling us how good we were doing, was such a big uplifter for us, and I really appreciate that. And a little bit talking to him during the race, I realized, man, this guy's an interesting guy and is really pushing himself. Since then, I've kind of followed him on Instagram, and he's doing some cool stuff, pushes his body, and he always motivates me literally every time I see his post. So we had a great conversation. I hope it's one you like. Awesome.
What do I gotta do? Just talk to you?
Yeah, I'll ask you some questions, and literally, if you have anything, stories, ideas, questions, back and forth, whatever, we'll just wing it. I have lots of things to ask you.
All right.
To start off, like the Viking thing.
Yeah.
I figure that's an easy place to start.
Sure.
How'd that come about?
I grew my hair out. I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna grow my hair when we get married. She goes, okay.
How long ago was this?
We've been married for 7 years.
Okay.
So my hair is like, and going to the gym a lot, I got pretty big, and I was just like, I look like a Viking. I became obsessed with this show. And
It was that you're talking like the first season.
the first couple seasons.
Yeah.
And then I thought I looked like one of the characters, so I played it up. I'm like,
Well, I saw you post something on Rollo.
I'm like, I look like Rollo.
Yep.
So I just went with it, and I had fun with it, and that just kind of stuck as my identity.
Yeah.
And I went to Iceland and ran a marathon there, and I was just infatuated by Viking culture, and here I am now, just still loving it.
Well, in some of your images, you look definitely like a Viking. You pull it off for sure.
Yeah.
And I see the Rollo resemblance. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then the next, I was kind of thinking about so a lot of people annoy me on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've always been someone that felt like lead by example, not trying to tell people, and I see the stuff you post, and it makes me want to go do more. Like it pumps, like I'm like, look at what he's doing. That's awesome. Let's get after it. Like I don't know. Is that a conscious choice to kind of? I mean, what is your thoughts on what you're trying to do with your Instagram?
I just try to be different. Like, I'm not a dedicated runner. I'm not a dedicated lifter. I found the happy balance that, lets me do pretty much what I want to do. And
You're not a dedicated runner.
well, I am, but it's not. I'm not a runner, right? I'm not just a runner. I don't run that much. I mean, compared to what you and JT have done, I've done just under 1,500 miles this year. Like, I found that volume training just didn't need to happen, and I could focus on calisthenics, and I was obsessed with doing a human flag. Obsessed. And
Is that what that thing's called that you're doing?
yeah. And it's just been one of those things where I practiced for about 4 years to nail it.
I was going to ask you, what's the progression like? Number one, you have to find
Yeah.
a thing to do it on.
Yep. I started at the Y
Uh-huh.
back in like 2016, and I tried to mess around and do a flag. And the trainer there is like, just keep working at it, you'll get it. And every day, I tried every single day. And then one night in my basement, I have a Smith machine, and I just found the right angle, and I popped my arm the right way, and everything aligned, and I was like, geez, I think I just had it. And it was a progression from there, and then the fence.
I'm trying to picture like when you start, like how far up, like what is the, I'm trying to think of like, I have no concept of how far I could even possibly get. Like,
Like I started, like I held on to a squat rack,
Yep.
and then I put my arm under it, and I used my elbow, and it like braced my core. And I just kind of like hung there a little bit, and I'd jump out, and I'd just put my camera on slow motion. I'd be like, that would look so awesome if I could do it for real. And there's people that can do it, a million times better than I can, but it's all perspective. Just like running a fast mile, right?
Right.
There's always someone that's going to be faster than you, but everyone that looks at you thinks you're a god.
Right.
So it's all relative. But I can get my flag. I'm happy with it. It's fun to dance on that fence post at home. And
Is that on your property?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
that's the only one. My wife's like, "Why didn't you trim that one?" I'm like, "That's my flagpole." So
I always pictured you just on a run in somebody's yard, like, I found it.
there's sometimes there's a sign, or we'll go hiking in Bar Harbor, and you know the ladders that go up the mountains. I'll be like, "Hold my phone."
It looks cool as hell.
It's fun.
I want to start messing around. I haven't found the right thing to do.
You got to find the right grip, because we were just in Bar Harbor last weekend, and I was trying, and you got to find the right grip.
Is it as much pulling and
Pull and
pushing,
push.
pull and push,
Yep.
and a ton of core?
A ton of core.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I do most workouts.
Right. What is your balance with that? So I was talking to my mom a year ago, and I had been doing the Ironman, like I told you, and I felt like I'd already maxed out the swim and bike. I wasn't going to improve much. Running was the one thing I needed to improve on. So I started doing a lot of lifting and strengthening for run things. My mom said to me at one point, I was telling her what I was doing. She's like, "Don't you have to run to get better at running?" I'm like, "Damn it. I think you might be right." So then I just went full bore. I'm just going to put as many miles to it as I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from running, 500 in a year to 3,500. You know, I'm just going to see what happens and do as many miles as I can, which I'm definitely like in the camp. I need to back off that and do more strength stuff. But how do you find, do you feel like you have the right balance? What is the right balance? What kinds of things are you doing?
It's all different for everybody, because you know my wife and I, we have a very similar routine. She's nursing injury right now, but she'll do 3 days a week running and then lift the rest. And then she was doing what I'm doing, which is run 4 days a week, lift 3. Sometimes I lift 4. I'll have like a hybrid day. But it's the same, and that's how I trained for this year. I didn't train specifically for any event. I know it's in there. I've done it before. So I'm like, all right, mentally I'm there. But strength-wise, I'm just going to do my routine. I'm not going to dedicate to a speed, to a distance. I'm just going to do my thing. See what happens. And then I went into Pineland Farms in May for the 24-hour
festival trail run.
And I had never done a 24-hour. I had done Last Man last year for 100. So I'm like, well, I know what that feels like. I'm just going to go at it with, my training that I kept all winter, which is run Tuesday, Wednesday, lift Thursday, lift Friday, run Saturday, Sunday, lift Monday. That's what I do every week. I eat the same food every day. Pretty much.
How do I get to that, really?
Yeah.
So your liftings, are you doing like back by? Are you splitting up body parts?
I don't have an agenda. I kind of do my routine things, but it's pretty much a full body workout. I'll do a little bit of chest stuff, like more on Friday than any other day, but it's always upper body. I do some leg stuff. I don't lift anything heavy as far as like I'm not benching 225.
Right.
I'm keeping to my body weight. I weigh 165. So anything I do with my legs or my arms, I keep it all under my body weight. I don't deadlift. If I do, it's 100 pounds, 130 pounds. I don't need it. Train for my sport, I guess. And but yeah, I just go in. I'm in there for an hour to an hour and 40 minutes, and I do at least 500 core reps, whether it's side bends or sit-ups or the ab wheel. And the ab wheel is a secret. It's a secret weapon.
Yep. I have my ab wheel. So you've seen I've been doing some ring stuff, right?
Yep.
And that's been brutal on my core. And I go to do the ab wheel, and it's like, because I've done the rings, I can't. I'm going out and I'm in pain because the rings have got me so bad.
Yep.
But I'm building up to like being able to handle both.
Yeah, and so the ab wheel, it was like a progression, and I'm like, oh, I do this every day. This is easy. It got easier. I'm like, well, how can I make it harder? So I did like my legs elevated. And then I'm like, well, how? So then I saw Instagram videos. I'm like, I'm going to try to go across the balance beam. I did that. And now I can do it from standing position, which is like it's the hardest I think it's been so far.
I did that in high school. I could do that in high school. No one.
So I do it from standing position, and I don't do it all the time because
Back to standing?
back from yeah, standing position all the way down, all the way up, and then if you can pause in the middle,
Right.
that's the money spot. I mean, that burns so bad.
Yeah, the pike would be the hardest thing. Well, forget the ab stuff. Wow.
But I've had 3 hernia surgeries. So
Recently, or
my last one was at 30. I'm 37.
I had 2 when I was really young, and 1 in high school.
Yeah.
I haven't had 1 since. But is that so? Do you think you've protected yourself against that?
So when I started, I had 2 in high school, 2 in middle school, and then I was fine. And then when I was going to get married, I had to get into the gym. I was always kind of interested in the gym, but I just did like sit-ups and arm curls.
Right.
That was what I did when I was in my early 20s. And so I got married at 30. So I started going to the gym, and I was like, then I got a hernia from work, but it could have been related, not really sure. And the doctor's like, you don't have that muscle lining in your wall. You shouldn't be doing sit-ups at all. So I proved him wrong.
Can you imagine a doctor saying?
Yeah,
that?
she goes, you're gonna have to probably not do what you're doing because it's gonna come out somewhere else. And so I'm like a year into fitness, and I'm like, oh, all right. And then I'm like, as soon as I got back to the gym, I just felt the limit, and I'd hit that burn spot, and I'm like, just be careful.
Right.
Just be careful, not be stupid. And I just built that ab wall, I guess, that I didn't have before. So
I can't even imagine somebody saying that.
yeah, the doctor's yeah, you might not want to do that. I'm like, I'm 30.
Like I'm amazed. So my son's a physical therapist, and my daughter is studying to be one. I don't think most doctors take much muscle stuff. You know, they're in. I don't know, pills solve everything kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, like that's shocking to me because it's such a basic thing that you can. Maybe you need to back off. Start a little easier. Let's find an easier exercise and build up to that.
Yep.
I can't believe.
Yeah. I mean, I have a current injury now that's been diagnosed that the doctor released me because he's like, I don't understand. He's like, come back when it hurts. In 2017, I had gone to the gym for like a year, and my wife's like, you really need to start running. She goes, you should do cardio. I'm like, running's stupid. I can't believe, because my wife's been running a lot longer than I have. And so I'm like, I couldn't imagine running. I have 0 running background.
It's so funny, like the ultra runners that I've talked to, that's a common kind of thing. Like we weren't runners to go into it.
Nope.
We've discovered it.
No, there was days where my wife's like, where are you working? I'm like, oh, this direction. She's like, can you drop me off like 10 miles out from the house and I'll run home? I was like, who does that? That's so dumb. Who would want to run that far? Well, yeah, it started with so 2017 started with, she's like, we're going on a vacation. I'm going to sign us up for a 10K while we're there. It blew my mind. Like 6 miles.
Did she say why she thought you wanted to get you into running? Like why? Like she's saying she wants you to start running.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's something that we can do together,
Yeah.
but then it's something that's progressed into something that's our lifestyle.
Right.
So it's like everything that we do revolves around it. So sometimes it's kind of like a pain in the ass where it's like, well, we got to run this day. We miss out on family things. We got runs, and then the competitiveness between us, where I might steal the thunder. She's done phenomenal things, but when I'm there too, it's kind of like, I don't know. I steal the spotlight. We don't share it equally sometimes, so I know it bothers her, and it was kind of a hump we had to get past. But it was nothing I've done out of spite. It was just something that naturally happened, and I fell in love with it. And she realizes the passion for it, and it's awesome because that's our weekend getaways. People know us as a running couple.
Right.
We're at pretty much every event together, and we have a good time. But
So she signed you up for the
started
5K.
10K. 10K, and I just didn't think that was possible. And then we did she signed us up for a last minute one in Augusta. She's like, we're going to do this as a practice run. We ran it together, finished together. I mean, I was wearing like it was summer. I was wearing like a mid-sleeve black compression shirt, compression shorts. I was so hot. And so, but we did it. We finished together. It was great. And then we did the race in the summer, and then I trained for Maine Marathon half, like that fall. She's like, well, you might as well just use that progression, and we'll get you up to that half. Did the half with her. We ran it together. Awesome. I was hooked. Loved it. Going into that winter, my knees started to bother me. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. And I crawl around a lot for work. I'm like, it could be related, but maybe not, because I've never ran. And now all of a sudden I've got this excruciating crunch every step.
In the joint itself?
In the joint. And I've had, this knee I had scoped when I was like 21. I stepped off a sidewalk and tore my meniscus. Very similar pain. So, went to the surgeon. They gave me put me through physical therapy before I could get the scan, the imaging, whatever the imaging is, CAT scan or MRI. Yeah. Before they gave me the MRI. And he goes, after we did that, he goes, congratulations, you have a catastrophic tear in your knee. He goes, it looks like a mouse chewed away all of your meniscus. It's gone. He goes, you're going to need to get it fixed within a year. He goes, come to me on your off season, we'll plan it. You need to get it fixed. And he goes, and then I'll see you by 40 for a partial replacement. And so I was like, oh, all right. Kept to my routine, kept running, kept doing my thing, which was only like 15, 20 miles a week.
Right.
Signed up for a marathon in Iceland, and I went back for a follow-up, and I told the doctor, I said, well, it hurts. I said, but I signed up for a marathon, and I'll get the surgery when it's over. He's like, do what you want, right? So I ran, I think it was like 700 miles from the point of injury to the marathon.
Right.
Ran the marathon. I had some soreness. Like I told my wife, never again this distance. It's too far.
I did that thing.
Eat my words, right?
I did the same thing. Never again. As they're like, we left, I did the Millinocket, MDI marathon.
Yep.
I got done and we went to Pat's Pizza afterwards, and I'm like, my wife and my mother are helping me into the restaurant, and I'm like, never again.
No, never again. So, we're on vacation after the marathon. I was hobbling around.
Yep.
And then like by the end of the week, we tried to go for a small run, and I had some like shooting pain in a weird spot, like my IT band, I guess. It went away, but it took a long time. That was like 8-9 weeks before I felt somewhat normal again. So like recovery was slow. And so I went back to the surgeon to schedule, and I said, it doesn't hurt. Something else hurts, but my knee doesn't hurt. So he made me like squat like a duck and jump around, and he was like flopping my knee up by my ears. And he goes, you have no pain. No pain. He goes, if you were, you'd be jumping off the table. He's like, I don't understand. This doesn't heal because it's cartilage. He goes, so I'm going to discharge you, and I'll see you by 35 for a partial replacement. I have zero knee pain to this day. None. And I think it's because I've strengthened the muscles around all my joints. That's the only conclusion I've come up with.
In our body, I mean, I was just talking to Chase from our race. He's actually doing Moab this weekend.
Oh, the 240?
Crazy.
Badass.
Yeah. Can't imagine. But my daughter has had knee problems for years, and she did physical therapy and did a certain set of exercises for 2 or 3 weeks, and now her knee's great. She thought she'd never be able to squat again. My daughter's a gym rat. She's pumping weight as much as she can, and she's back squatting again. Like our bodies adapt. You're putting that strain on it.
Yep.
Our bodies have to figure out a way to survive. I mean, that's crazy.
I think just, I eat relatively good. I always have. Like my mom always taught me to eat my 2 vegetables. And I always followed that. Like that was my nutrition growing up, like 2 vegetables, no problem. Love vegetables. So when I got on my own, always ate pretty good. And then my wife happens to be a dietitian, so that also is a secret weapon of mine, that she prepares pretty good food every night.
Right.
And then breakfast and lunch, I'm very routine. I eat the same thing every day. I'm not a big meat eater. It's mostly vegetable based. Not that it's just out of choice.
Right.
Like I'll eat meat, that's fine. But we're practicing vegetarianism, I guess, for the last 6 months, and I've noticed zero change. And we've cheated a couple of times, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Food is fuel. I'm not a foodie. I don't really care about the way things taste.
Right.
Whatever gets me to the next day.
Yeah.
So
So my mother's a nutritionist. She got her master's when I was a kid. I think I kind of more rebelled against anything she was pushing at the time.
Yeah.
But then again, what we were sold back then is vegetable oils and low-fat things, and that was the fat. That's which now I think we're finding out are some of the worst things for you too. Some of those. But there's no doubt. Like I think I've messed around with. I've done carnivore. I've done 2 weeks of vegan. 2 weeks I've done vegetarian. Just trying different things. And I think the conclusion I came to is less about what you're eating, more about what you're cutting out.
Yep.
The crap, the processed stuff. Just having less of that.
Yep.
That's what I've found.
yeah, I mean, as far as process, I mean, granola bar, that's
Right.
trail mix, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty much she makes home cooked stuff. We don't do any box dinners. I'm not against it. I'm not going to turn around someone's macaroni salad at a barbecue. Or
Right.
I'm not fussy either. So, but we try to do the best we can. But I still eat cake, still eat cookies, still drink beer. Not this month though. Sober October.
I was gonna be sober anyways, so I started posting. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, year 3. Year 3 of October's no beer, but in some moderation anyways. Like 2 beers is a big day, right?
Right.
1 beer is fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm out with the wife and I have a margarita. It's like that's
it's fine.
here or there. Yeah. If you're too strict, you'd
be miserable.
You're missing. Yeah.
You're miserable.
Right.
Yeah, like we went on vacation a couple weeks ago, end of July. I mean, there was no vegetarian diet. It was just have fun. You're right. It's stupid. Turn down all this cool stuff. So.
Even though I do fasting and stuff.
I don't know how you do that. But I don't really have an interest in fasting.
It was so JT had mentioned it to me and got me thinking about it. So I just started messing with it, and I kind of told you briefly when you asked me about that. And then my son, the physical therapist, sent me a link saying basically it reduces all-cause mortality by 60%, something like that. And it kind of explained, the way I understood it is when at like 3 days, your body starts eating itself, right? It needs to get nutrients from somewhere. But your body goes and gets the crap cells, the cells that are probably going to be cancerous someday. It's not doing the cells that are doing the most work. It's cleaning out the junk.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes behind the scenes and cleans out the stuff. So that's the thought behind why the long-term health issues. I just like it as a mental challenge. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah.
I've lightened up a lot on I used to count my almonds, and I still do kind of. I know how many looks like in the sandwich bag of what I should consume.
Yep.
But I used to be real bad, and I portioned stuff out, and it was stupid. It was dumb. I don't notice any difference in my weight holds the same. I've fluctuated. I've been down as low as 157, and that was for Last Man in 2020. That was my leanest I ever was. And looking back at photos, sure I was shredded, but I saw some angles that looked unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's zero fat, so I was probably in the 5%. And I could see the sides of my ribs and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I don't think it was beneficial because I didn't have any stored fats to energize myself.
Right.
And I ran 100K that year there, and but it was all a mental game, really. I've taken myself out at that race every year, except last year. This year I took myself out. I shouldn't have. I'm supposed to fail on the course, but I didn't. And so I look back and I'm like, man, I was sitting at the picnic table with 7 minutes to go, in the 3rd position, and I'm like, I looked at Ed. And what's the other guy's name? Man, he looked fresh. Both of them looked so fresh. And I was like, I got so hot at that point because it got hot out there and all that dew came off the grass. And I'm like, And now I just have that what if. Because in a long race, you know, you get those wins, those ups and downs. And I probably could have bounced out of it and made another lap or two. I don't know. And that, like, I'm happy, super happy with 25 laps. But what if? What if I didn't fail on the course? Man, that's the whole purpose of the game.
I have the same. I had the same experience. I did the same thing. I of all the things I kind of like mentally prepare myself for, you know, you got ups and downs and discomforts, and I wasn't prepared for being completely satisfied for where I was at the moment. Like I went into it injured, or I had injured myself like a month leading into the race, and I was babying it, and every time I went for a run, it started acting up. Little kind of tendon issue on the inside, bursitis kind of thing, and it just kept coming back. And then I was like, I'm expecting the race 2 or 3 laps, I could be done. And it felt great. Everything felt great. I had a blast in the race. JT dropped out, and I'm looking at him just waiting for me to kind of finish, and I'm like, I'd like to go hang out with my wife. and it's just been such a perfect day. And he had run a 90 miles before, and I knew the course was a little long, so I knew I was about 90 total, 86 officially, but I'm like, this is just a perfect ending. It was just a perfect day, and I wasn't prepared for like pushing through, being satisfied.
That's weird.
But I didn't end on the trail.
It's last year when I hit that 100 was the goal. I committed to the number, and that was the mistake. Last year, I made it down with Ryan Matevia, Ed, and Jasmine. Do you know Jasmine Fowler? She has the record for women out there. She did 25 laps last year. So I went out with the final 4 last year. And I didn't want to. I wanted to stop at the 100 lap with like the 3 others. Chase was one of them. Right. I wanted to stop with them. I laid on the ground, and last year I had a crew. My wife, my friend Terry, stood me up, and my friend Brett. They stood me up, and they said, go. You have 3 minutes. Here's a sandwich. Go. And I was like, no. I did 100. He goes, yeah, it's not a 100-mile race.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. But I was done. So I started with everybody, and as soon as I got an eye shot, I started walking. I started to cry. I got all emotional. I'm like, I did it. I hit 100 miles. And then I walked for a little bit till I knew that it wasn't physically possible to complete the lap. And then I called Terry. I'm like, get my wife, send her up the trail. I'm walking home. And I walked back the other way. It was a magical moment. Like, it's changed my mentality and the way I think of racing now. 100%. It's way different. I know that anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was. And so that's what I'm going in with everything. Like, I can do it. Confidence.
My last lap, I was watching the clock. I'm watching my watch. I'm like, okay. And I messed up my math. My brain was not in the right place. But I'm like, oh no, I definitely want to finish this lap. So I'm like, I need to do like an 8-minute mile for the next mile and a half.
Is that when you went flying past me?
No, I'll tell you that. So I gunned it at the end, and I come around the 4 mile mark, and I look at my watch. I still had like 8 minutes to go. I'm like, what the hell did I just do? And then I walked the end, and I've been really slow on the earlier parts. I'm like, and looking back, it's like, you really don't have to go very fast to complete that loop. No. The one I went flying by you, I've experienced this in marathons too, where I get this burst out of nowhere and just feel great.
Yeah.
And it's literally like my last, like I don't know it yet, but it's the last kind of a bit of energy I have. I've got like a mile in, and then the wall's coming, and I felt so good. I'm like, I'm just riding this wave. I should have backed off. I should have been like, steady your pace. But it felt so good. I'm like, I got this thing. Yeah, and it started down. Even though the only discomfort I really felt, the downhills were getting to me. Those steeper downhills, those were starting to, I'm definitely doing the backwards thing. I am totally taking it. I think that's...
I went sideways. Sidestepping helped me.
That's not...
Because I could get the quickest sidestepping.
Right.
And it was the least amount on my quads.
And my toes were starting to just jam in.
Raw on your shoe.
Just at the front of my toe. Yeah. My quads were starting to feel it. Everything else didn't feel that bad. It was just the downhills I was kind of... But that didn't take me out. I was satisfied.
Yeah, no, it's good. And you should be happy with it. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Anybody out there pushing themselves, it doesn't matter if they went 3 laps, 2 laps, they're getting out of their comfort zone. And that's why I like that race so much, because everybody is struggling. It doesn't matter how far, it's their personal battle. And that's the best part.
Yeah.
There's no finish line. You just do what you can do.
Yeah.
And there's people there that just go and support other friends that are running. So they'll just go run a couple of laps. They weren't ready for that. That's a hard course. There is nothing easy about that. All of Pineland running is hard. And so we're just to see everybody out there, and you see people there that are like, you're like, that guy's going to be a challenge. But then they're out way before you, and you're like, how's that possible?
Right.
Everybody will surprise you. Anybody that just looks did not matter.
It's such a mental thing.
100%.
I know that just standing there, probably not early on because there's so many people, but like after a marathon or so, I'm like, there's some good looking runners here. And that was part of my being satisfied. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, morning, I'm thinking 15 people or something. And I never expected, there was a point where he, I think it's Will, the announcer, was like, and here's your top 10. JT and I looked at each other.
You guys nailed it for your first attempt.
Yeah, it was
Nailed it.
Yeah, I got to say, I mean, I think I might have mentioned this to you, but my favorite moment of the entire race was you like, we passed you and you said, you guys crushing it for your first time. And I was just like,
hey, you look strong.
But it was to take that moment was for you to, so I back up a little bit. JT and I went into the race saying, I really want to try to help anybody I can. Like just if somebody's in a rut, like I want to make this more than just a race. Like spread some positivity.
Yep.
We ended up being closer to the front of the pack, most groups, so we were never really with people struggling. The guy that ended up second, I helped him a little bit. Who knows how much I helped him. But when you reached out, when you said that, like that was just such a cool moment for both of us. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody out there was doing such a great job. Such a great job. And I went into it with a different strategy. Training, didn't train for it, really. I mean, I just kept to my routine. I didn't do any huge volume running. I had run some long runs this year, but not because, I'm going to do this for last man. Like, I had a failed FKT attempt in July. That was did 100K by myself. And didn't make my goal. But I didn't have any water, did it unsupported. So
you told me about this on the run. We were talking, and actually that was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, this guy's. You said to me, I'm like, I said something about you could stop at stores or something. Like, couldn't you get something at a store? And you're like, that wasn't.
No,
it wasn't
my plan.
It wasn't in the rules or whatever.
Yeah, my plan was unsupported or bust. I didn't want help.
I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like.
And I had a goal time. Like the current time is 19 hours for this trail, for Down East Sunrise Trail. It's 19 hours, and that's supported. Well, I wanted like 12 to 14 hours for 84 miles, unsupported. So I was running at like a 9-10 minute pace until like mile 53, and I had 0 water. I don't need to go there again. It was tough. I'm like, nah. Oh well, I'll try it again, and I'll do it in cooler temperatures.
Yeah.
But anyways, last man though, like I went to it with the strategy of I'm gonna run the back of the pack. So my wife's like, I'm gonna just go with you. I'm like doing all this math in my head, and it's such a horde, and I don't want to be around all the talkative people. It zaps my energy from the beginning.
I feel the same.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go to the back. You know, some of my friends are there. I ran a couple laps with some friends. Talk to them, just fine. But there's the people that talk about nonsense that it gets on my nerves. I know it helps them, but I'm not listening to anything for headphones until nighttime. So I talk to my wife, or we just kind of just zone out ourselves. And I think we did almost a marathon together. And then she just wasn't feeling it this year, and so she's like, I'm just gonna stop. I don't want to. She didn't want to be there. I forced her to go.
Right.
I signed her up. I'm like, you're coming. And so I stayed at the back of the pack, and then she left, and I think I stayed there until probably the 50K mark. I stayed towards the back, and I knew a lot of people would drop, and then I came to the front so I could kind of distance myself. And because I run by myself for all my runs. I'm sure you do too. I thought JT lived closer by, but you guys didn't run together at all until this race?
We've run like maybe 3 times in a year.
That's you ran 80 miles together?
Yeah. The times we've been together, like we enjoyed our pacing is pretty similar. He's probably a little faster than I am, but
Yep.
but when we're together, we get talking and not worrying about pace. So.
Yeah. For pace, I used my the experience of hitting 100 miles the past. I hit it in May, and I hit it last year at Last Man. So Pineland this year, I ended up winning the 24-hour. I didn't know I was going to win. I just said I'm just going to do what I did at Last Man because I know what it's like when I get to the struggling miles.
Right.
But I tend to run faster at 2 in the morning because that's when I run. I think I just kind of wake up. And so I'm running 9-minute paces at mile 70. And then I'll commit, it won't last long, but I'll probably run 10, 12 miles at a 9-minute pace when I should be, slow.
Right.
So I'm like, well, if I just keep to around 11-minute pace, 12-minute pace, going into Last Man, I'll be fine. And I was. And I was fine until I got hot. Because if you look at my splits on the website, I'm like 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 9 minutes the whole time. And I had one lap, there was like 15, because I ran with some kid from Colorado. I thought he was going to stomp everybody. He's like, oh yeah, I run the mountains all the time. And I'm like, and he was like flying. And I'm like, well, if you're going to run with me, I'm not going this fast. But we ended up going like 7 minutes faster than my previous lap. I'm like, that ain't happening again. I can't run with you. Sorry, no offense. And he's like, no, it's okay. I want to slow down. He's like, I want to make it till at least midnight. And then like we did another lap together. And he's like, well, maybe if I can get like 9 laps, I'll be happy. And he's like losing confidence. I'm like, no negative energy.
Yeah,
I
right.
said, stick with me. I'll get you through the next lap. Just stay with my pace. I'll slow you down. And then the next lap, I saw him take off again. I'm like, he's trying to take himself out. And that's what I did a couple years ago. Like, I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. So I just kept flying until I would just burn myself out. And then I ended at 100K. So I had a G.
So you, if I remember correctly, like your pace, you were pretty slow. I don't know how far, halfway through the race, and then all of a sudden you start picking up, and then you held that pace pretty much the rest of the
time. Yep.
Yeah. Was that? Do you see what's the strategy behind that?
Well, in the beginning, like I want to conserve as much as I need. I don't need to stop. Like I wanted to time it so I just came across with minutes. That's under a minute to spare and just get right back and keep
That's
going.
where I'm thinking too.
That's where I wanted to be, but then I was like, well, I eat potatoes, I eat eggs, I eat like real food. And then I gotta go to the bathroom. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna give myself time. So if I have to go to the bathroom, it's there. I can eat real food, not be rushed. So I went to like a 12-minute pace, which is really hard to do. I'm not a 12-minute pace runner typically. Like 11 on that is easy to do because it's a lot of hills, but the 12 is significantly, for me, hard to do unless I walk a lot more. And it comes to a point where I can't take short, choppy steps anymore. It hurts. I got to take my full strides, and that's how my pace speeds up.
Yep.
And Begonia came to me, and I'm like, the lap he dropped out. And he goes, why are you going so fast? I'm like, I can't run slow anymore. It hurts. I have to. He's like, I hope you know what you're doing because I want to see you hang in there, which felt awesome because I look up to him for advice. I'm like, I've got his number and I text him. I'm like, Begonia, how do I do this? Or what's your thoughts on this? And so he told me some training tips. As he goes, don't run over 20 miles for your training runs.
Yeah, you told me that.
He's like, you don't need to. And I was like, oh, all right. So this year, last year, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to run over 20 miles. I mean, I ran some marathons as like races and stuff, but I didn't go out and, do training runs intended for that.
Well, so much of this back to what you said. I mean, it's a mental thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Just having that confidence at getting 100, which to me, I'm like, I know 100's within my range for sure. Just having that confidence, know what I'm up against. Like now, it's like, okay, could I do a second night? What would that be like?
Yeah.
It's kind of where I'm at.
It's too hard to think that far out.
But now that but just having that confidence going in, I don't need the mileage.
Yeah.
It's just being strong and having the willpower.
Yeah. I've got a 100-miler coming up on Saturday, and so I know I can do the distance and I know I can do the elevation gain, but I've never done point to point. So I'm doing Midstate Massive 100.
Where is that?
Starts in Ipswich, New Hampshire, and it crosses all of Massachusetts, touches Connecticut, touches Rhode Island, finishes back in Mass. So, and it's all trail through the mountains. It's like almost 11,000 feet of elevation, which is very comparable to the Last Man and Pineland, the other side of the farm. It's all the same elevation there. So I know I can do it, but I've never done point to point. So I'm excited for the challenge.
Awesome.
Super pumped. I signed up late because I wanted to make sure I was recovered from Last Man, which was only not like my first marathon, which I never wanted to run again.
Right.
But recovery, I felt normal after about a week.
Yeah, my little knee thing's still
there.
Well, it was honestly like this week. Now that I'm doing my 13 every day, it's actually getting better every day I run. I think I could have started earlier. Just
How's that? The 13 going?
it feels like such an easy distance, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's the mental part. You can make 13 feel like nothing when people train weeks and months to hit 13.
Right. Yeah.
You just do that like it's nothing.
And I split up my run. On the weekends I'll do the 13s, but I'll do, depending on what time I get up, 10 in the morning is what I've been doing, and then 3 in the afternoon, piece of cake. Yeah, that's easy. That's how it feels right now. I'm sure it will get older as the month goes on, but
Yeah. Have you run yet this afternoon?
yeah, I've already done. Yeah.
You're done.
I do at lunchtime.
Oh, you do at lunch?
Yeah.
At work?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I work from home, so.
Oh, you work from home. That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I can hop out, do a quick couple miles, and yeah, it's been pretty easy so far. I don't expect it to get too hard. Just there'll be some times where schedule wise it will be a little more difficult. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I still need 3 more miles. I have to go out. But
What time do you run in the morning?
so my alarm's set for. So last year, all winter long, I was up at like 4:30 doing my runs.
Yeah.
And I mean, a big part of me is, I think we probably understand this, like trying to find the balance, not messing up family time and doing other things, but getting my runs in. So like, I sacrifice sleep was my play. Well, everybody else is sleeping, that's why I get my runs in. I think I did a little too much of that. I think I need, recovery has to be part of it too.
Yeah.
Sleep is a big part of recovery. So I set my alarm for 5:15, I think is what it's set for. But I've been up at 4:15 every morning. You're up even earlier.
I get up at 2:30 every day.
Gonna say, like I get up and I'm going to the bathroom, like check, I'm like, he's already posted.
Yeah, I get up at 2:30. I like an hour in the morning because I eat oatmeal. I drink a black coffee. I let my dogs out. My wife gets up at 3:30. We have a pretty good setup in the basement. So my wife, since COVID, my wife stopped going to the Y because they closed, and I had been collecting equipment for a long time. And she's like, I'm so glad you did that. And since COVID, I've bought a cable machine and a ton more weights and dumbbells. So we have just about everything downstairs. So my wife is super regimented. She gets up at 3:30 downstairs. This morning we ran together because she usually would run either Wednesday or Tuesday, and sometimes we run together, sometimes we don't. It's more of a safety thing, especially we live on the main, I mean anywhere here, country road. We live on a busy road and then we run onto the country roads. So we go together once in a while. But yeah, 2:30, so I start my run. I always try to start before 4 a.m. If I don't, I kick myself and I get mad. Like yesterday I ran at 4:30 only because this week I'm trying to do everything. I would have ran 10 to 13 yesterday, but where I have this big race, I slowed my paces down.
Taper week.
Taper week.
Right.
I'm just trying not to have sore toenails, I guess, going into Saturday, because Saturday I'm going to push it. I have a 10 a.m. start, so I feel good.
Is it weird for you running in the day with the sunlight out?
It's very weird.
Because you do.
Everything's in the dark. I go to the gym in the dark. I leave my house at 4:15. Go to the gym. I go to this one, Bangor Brewer Athletic Club, who is sponsoring me going to this race this weekend. So pretty excited. I've never had a sponsorship.
Right.
I've got 2 sponsors going into this race, so all expenses paid. I just have to do the work. So
That's awesome.
I got my hotel covered. entry and food and new shoes, so I feel like a pro. But I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna get through it. Winning isn't on the top of my mind, or I'll never get there. I'm just gonna get through mile by mile.
Right.
Kind of strategize as I go and hope for the best.
Yeah, I so last winter I got attacked by a police dog. I don't know if you saw that on my.
I think did you say that when we were on the course? You got bit by a dog.
Yeah, State Trooper Canine, literally.
Yeah.
Just on the hill. Like that was. It was like the coldest day of the year. I went out at like 4 a.m. It was like -6 or something like that. It was just stupid cold, windy. I'm like, I woke up early. I'm like, I'm going out to get my run in. Next thing I know, a dog was on my arm. No warning. That was that. So then.
Did you fall to the ground?
No. Oh, I'll tell you this. Yeah. So I'm running. I get hit in the back. Something hit me in the back. I'm like, what the frig was that? And it felt like somebody, like a buddy came up behind me and just gave me a little, hey Ben, you know. And I turn around and the dog, and it's on my arm. It's literally right on my arm.
Yeah.
And I hit it as hard as I can. Boom. It comes off. It jumps immediately back at me. I kicked it in the chest. It keeps coming at me. It was like a flurry of activity, and somehow I got his collar and held the collar. And then the guy came out, took the dog, and he's like, come with me. I'm like, I need a minute. I'm like, I need a minute. He goes, come to the house. Like, give me a minute. And I kind of like let the adrenaline come back down and went to the house, and we kind of pulled off my layers and see what it was. I have a nice little, you can kind of see the scar.
Did you get stitches?
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6.
Did he pay for it?
Yeah, I probably could have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt it's a weird thing. Like I don't know. I felt bad for him, and I knew he was going to be in some trouble, and I'm like, it's a cool story, and
It's a cool story.
It was at Belgian Malinois, which I have a buddy that when we go on vacation, he's a police dog trainer and trained German Shepherds for years. He's like, I don't do anything with those alligators. Yeah, he was telling me that they on training when they're training, he goes, they give it way harder than they do actually on the perp. He goes, because they know the pads are there, they know the person's. He goes, the way you were dressed.
You look like you had a padded suit.
Right, and it gave me its all. But I think the headlamp saved me. I think the headlamp shining in his eyes, he couldn't really see.
Were you like yelling? Were you like?
No, not at first. Once I got the dog, I'm like, whose effing dog is this? And then he came around, I'm like, your dog just shredded my arm, and yeah. So that was, so that happened, and my wife is freaked out. And I had one run the year before, early in the morning. The sun had come up, but a bear kind of challenged me. So my wife's like, you're not going out without a headlamp. You're not going out at all when it's dark. So I started running on the treadmill for the rest of the winter,
Ugh.
which I hate.
Ugh.
And I think I ended up injuring myself from just doing that.
It's so boring.
Oh man, it's brutal. But that was kind of like, I was a little freaked out to go back out too.
Yeah, I
even
would
though
be too.
a dog's not attacking you. Even though I see dogs all the time.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's
that's strange.
As Evan said to me, my daughter's boyfriend, he's like, now you've taken on a police dog. Those other dogs don't stand a chance. And I've had like a few dogs come at me in the road, and I turn to them, and I swear they know something's different about this guy. Like, because I'm ready to murder him. It's already gone through, like, I've already thought through how I'm going to do it. And I'm a dog guy.
Yeah.
But so I haven't run, long story to get to here, I haven't been running at night, and I've kind of been avoiding it. And then after Last Man Standing, you're out there running, and I'm like, I've been putting it off. So like,
well, you have kind of a reason. It's like a PTSD thing. Like, I'd be like, yeah.
I ran in the last week. I ran by his house, and the dog's name is Dallas, and he's in the backyard, like in his kennel, and I hear him growling at me, and I'm like, I've already taken you on once, you know. And I'm like yelling at the dog like I'm all tough, but I'm checking over my shoulder every couple feet. I don't run that way much often.
2 weeks ago, I did 21 miles. And I get a couple of loops at my house. So I either do like a 6, 10, a 12, and I got an 18-mile loop. And so I usually just run the 6 multiple times.
Yep.
It's just easy.
Right.
And easy as in like, it's right there.
Right.
So I was running the loop, and I ran by this house, and there was a car like off on someone's lawn with the headlights shining in the woods. And it was probably like 3:45. And they're shouting, hey! They're like shouting, and I went faster. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, why is there people out here? And so then I stopped and I paused my music. They're like, have you seen a dog? And they're like in a field, like in someone's yard. And I was like, oh, look. And I took off again because these were like cracked out people or something. And so then they, in their car, they come up the road and they pulled in front of me. And I'm like, oh boy, am I going to have to get physical? They don't want to mess with me, not in the morning. And so they're like, have you seen a dog? I'm like, no. They're like, I'm like, I'll look, I'll help you look. What is it? I'm like, oh, it's a pit bull. And I'm like, great. I'm like, all right, what do you want me to do? Catch him? Like, I'm like, I'll look. Thank you. And I took off again. Well, I came by again for another lap. They were still walking, so I'm like, all right, maybe they really did lose the dog. And I'm like, I'm still looking. Like, I'm gonna find it 6 miles away. I'm gonna walk it back, maybe, because I love dogs. But it's just kind of I'm like, I hope I don't run into a pit bull that's mad or lost. I'm gonna catch a pit bull.
I did some research after the whole thing, like what to do with a dog attack. It's just, Google does not have any good answers.
No.
Grab a stick and try to keep it open.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I don't want to hurt a dog, but if he's biting me, what am I doing? Punch him in the nose? Like, so I have this pistol that looks like a credit card. It's called a life card, and it fits in my zipper of my handheld water bottle. Mm-hmm. And I used to run with that all the time because I had a fear of the dark. And then I moved to Orrington, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to run, I'd run in the dark. I'm going to have to get used to this because, I get off the main road. I live on like a side road, but then I have to go about a mile on the main road to get onto another side road. And I've seen people walking like twice in 6 years I've lived there, and that freaked me out. There shouldn't be anybody out here walking, but then it's like, why am I out here running? But they have no lights. They can judge your character, right? So I got this little pistol. It's 22, and then as I was running with it, I'm like, I'm gonna have to stop, fumble around with it, unfold it.
Right.
I'm like, it's just extra weight, so I just hope for the best.
Right.
Hope for the best. And my wife runs with Mace when she runs alone, and I think she'd be fine. She'd put up scrap, but you never know, right? Getting pulled into the side of a car, hit by a truck.
Right.
The gun's not going to stop a truck.
There's a guy I run by and I see him, well, this time of year I start to see him more and more, and he runs with a chainsaw. And I'm like, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I gotta stop and talk to the guy that runs with a chainsaw. She's like, do you listen to yourself sometimes? I'm like, all right.
He's a trainer for Millinocket.
He is. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Toys for Tots. He does.
Yeah.
I think that's the charity that he has his money for. Yeah.
I ran the marathon last year in a costume, in my Viking costume last year. Carried a shield the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Full. You did the full.
Everything. No, it's full.
Yeah.
Yeah, full. And then I ran an ultra in that same costume, and my wife ran the ultra in her costume this past April in New Hampshire.
That's awesome.
We did a 30-miler, 33 miles in our costumes. It's fun. We're the only ones that participated in that in a costume run. The race director had a costume, and us.
Wow. Yeah, I love Millinocket. It's such a cool.
It's a
kind
good
of give back.
It's a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
Everybody's supportive and fun. I think I've done it 5 times, the full once, but usually the half.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing it this year. I might have something that weekend going on that I can't miss, but it's a good time. People should do it.
I agree. Yeah, I've done the full twice.
And even when it's freezing, everybody's suffering together.
Yeah.
Everybody feels the same way.
The first time I did it, I came back. I couldn't find the bus wasn't there, and I struggled. That part of my whole thing. I mean, for me, marathon was just I'd done it in my first in an Ironman. I'd done a couple before, but I'd never been able to master that distance. Like, it just would get so uncomfortable for me. And I'm like, and JT actually mentioned to me, he's like, have you heard of ultras? I'm like, I can't do 26.2. And I'm like, wait, so let's start training for long. Let's push out the distance. Let's aim for longer distance. Then all of a sudden, 26.2 wasn't so bad. But that first time I run marathon, Millinocket, I come in, I was struggling. It's getting cold. I was cold. The bus wasn't there, so then I had to hike back, walk to the school. Then I had planned to take a shower, and the showers were cold, and I was just full on shivering. Yeah. It's another one of those. I get in the car, once my phone finally unfroze, and I call my wife. You can
move your fingers.
Right. I call my wife. I'm like, never again. Don't let me do this again. Yeah, a year later, I'm back.
What are your thoughts on everybody that's obsessed with the Boston Marathon?
I personally have no interest in it.
Thank you.
I think part of it's that I run solo all the time. I enjoy solo runs. Even though my favorite part of Last Man Standing was that you're coming back together. Yeah. There's a coolness to that. But yeah, I think it's cool for anybody to do it. I think it'd be interesting to experience it.
Sure.
But I have no interest in as a goal.
Can I qualify for it? I haven't qualified for it, but could I? Absolutely. I could do it if I wanted to, I think. And last year, I ran a Maine Marathon after, and everyone's like, do you want to qualify for Boston? Not really. I don't really care. I just like to run.
Right.
They're like, oh, you're so close. I'm 7 minutes from qualifying after running Last Man, and then 4 weeks later, I ran 3:12. And I was like, yeah, it was great. I'm like, I don't need to go to Boston. It's not on my agenda.
Right.
I would rather run New York, but then I'd have to run 2:55. So I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
good.
Close to that.
But everyone's obsessed with Boston. And if it happens, it happens. But I'm not going to make that my sole purpose. There's too many other things out there. You can have so much more fun doing all these smaller runs or these ultras,
or you can just do it on your own.
Just doing it on your own, right? Like running a solo marathon, just to run a marathon, that's hard. And that if you can do that, then you can pretty much conquer a lot of goals.
Yeah. I've done 2 solo Ironman. My wife came to me. I did a half marathon. I'm a half Ironman. And I'm like, I want to go for a full Ironman. She's like, why are we going to spend that much money on it? I'll just do it for you, set it up for you. Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
And we just did it. I had my parents have a place on the lake. I'm like, I'll swim the lake. From Damerscott, I'll bike to here, loop around, and then do a marathon right here.
That's impressive.
It's the only way I've done it, so I don't know what it would be like running it with a full thousands of people cheering and stuff.
So you've only done a marathon Ironman solo?
Yeah, twice.
That's cool.
The first time, so this was where the whole change for me distance-wise. The first time my marathon was like 6 hours and a little over 6 hours. My body fell apart about halfway through. My stomach was a mess, just complete distress. And the second time I was 4:10. But I dropped over 2 hours the second time.
To do that accomplishment without all the glory, man, dude, you just came up to like here. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, part of me wants to like cross the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. But you did it twice,
right?
With zero glory, but your own.
Yeah.
So you did it for you.
So JT, the day he was gonna, so the beginning of that year, and I had decided I'm upping my mileage even more, which ended up working out good for me. He was gonna do it with me, but I have a swimming background and I've been biking for a year or so ahead of him. So he ended up doing a double marathon the same day as me. So we kind of timed it up. He finished his marathon almost he was slightly faster than I was. So we were just doing a mile and a half up and back for my marathon, and he was.
See, that's more mental training for a Last Man.
Yeah.
Do something repetitive, and it helps. That's all.
That's what it all is. It's mental training. It really is.
Anybody is capable of running a 14-minute pace. That's the cutoff. A 14-minute pace will get you around the track in time to start again. Most people can do that. It's how long can you do it until it gets hard.
So what is it? Okay, I want to get into your strategy. So rest strategy. Are you sitting? What do you do?
Sometimes, like if I come back in the beginning, I'm not cramped up. I feel fine. I'll sit. But as the night gets longer and like when I'm in like the heat of the night, when it's like, okay, I gotta make it to morning, I won't sit. Like I have my blanket and like put my food on my cooler, and I had my wife went home because we went with the whole, I don't want to think you're bored waiting for me.
Right.
And she's like, I don't want you to be, upset, or no, please go. We took separate cars purposely.
No, I get that too. I totally get that.
That way, because last year she was there, saw me finish. She was, she's always supports me. But I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's right here. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to drop.
Right.
Everything's right in my cooler. So she set things up so I could grab it easily. She condensed things to a smaller surface area. But yeah, came in, I grabbed my potatoes, grabbed my eggs, drink protein shake, or some of one, and then I as soon as I'm done, I go right back to the start line and I just kind of wait. So I can just kind of walk around. So I go up and there's about 3 minutes to go. I'm ready. And then every lap I do the same thing. I try to keep my paces the same. Every time I get to the mile markers in the woods, I look at my time. I'm like, same, like within seconds. I'm like, yes, same as last time. And then I get to that last mile 4, and I walk the whole way back.
Yeah,
the whole way.
Yep.
As soon as I see that, or actually it was the way it came up to that hill, it was before the sign. I walk all the way to the woods, and then once I'm like on that final stretch, I run across the finish line. And then same thing.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, so early on, I noticed.
And I walk every hill from the start.
Yeah.
You got to do it. I saw you guys running up hills, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, I hope that's their strategy. I don't want to judge anybody. So I'm like, that's gonna hurt later.
And I don't think it did. But I'm not sure. So part of it was the thought I mentioned to JT, and he's like, yeah, I'll go along with that. I'm like, I'm gonna run until I feel my heart rate kind of go up. Like I'm gonna take it super easy jogging, and once I feel my heart rate raised, then I'll start walking. Was kind of the thought behind it. And I don't think it set me back. The other thing that it did, when you get with a talkative group that you want to separate from, that was the place where you could kind of like get away, get into some clear space for not being in a crowd.
Yep.
I definitely think him and I, like he'd be like, let's go to that tree, and we go to the tree, and we keep pushing each other. We absolutely both are like, we're backing off that next year. There is no need. And we've talked about walking more towards the end. But I noticed early on, once I get around the grass, that's when my body would stun me. I get loosened back up.
Yeah, the field sucks. I hate the field. Wait till next year. It's going to go the other way,
right?
And it's all uphill in the field. You come out of the woods and you go up that long.
Oh yeah.
It sucks. It sucks. This next year's direction is harder in my opinion. And there's only 5, Chase included, that have gotten 100 in both directions. And Begonia, Ed, and Matavia. They're the only ones that have gotten 100 in both directions. And so this way, that real steep hill that we side shuffled down, now you got to walk up it.
Yeah.
And that's brutal.
It's a hike.
And then it's uphill for about a mile after that.
Right.
So you got to get yourself up the hill slowly, but then you got to try to jog a little bit, or you'll run out of time.
Right.
So it's strategy. My wife and I say this every year. We should go down for a couple of weekends in a row and run a marathon there and practice, because I know Matavia does it a lot. He trains there because it's his backyard. He lives right there.
Right.
So he runs. I see his stuff on Strava, and I'm like, man, he's trained 40 miles here. I wish I was 2 hours away. And
right.
So.
But the thing so at the start of every loop, I was, especially when we got down to like single digits of runners left, I was by far the stiffest one starting every loop. And I'm like, why am I so stiff? It would take me. I knew if I could just make it around the grass, I could loosen up. So mentally, I knew I could just push through it and get there. But it was like, why is nobody else running so stiff like I am? And I have somebody was giving away a free recumbent bike. I'm like, I think I might bring that just to sit and pedal. just pedal my legs.
Yep.
But usually I get tight hamstrings. I didn't have any issues with that. But it was the stiffness, and I'm like, what is everybody else doing?
Uh-huh.
But you're like you said, you get up and walk around for 3 minutes, and usually when they'd announce 3 minutes, that's usually when I'd start to get up to go there.
Yep.
Condensation, I wasn't ready for. There's
You got to keep all your gear in a dry bag or a storage tote.
I had a little storage tote. JT did it, but like we had stuff on a table. It was like
Wet.
everything's wet.
Everything's wet.
Yeah.
I had waterproof shoes for the second half. I ran trail shoes for the first half, and then as the night was going to start getting dewy, I had Gore-Tex just street shoes because it's not really technical. I don't really need the traction for rocks. So street shoes. I don't know if that made a difference, but my feet were not wet. I used toe socks.
I in Gingy.
No, they're
Well, I've got
Exoskin.
I got toe socks recently, and I'm like, that's the greatest.
It's the greatest thing. My wife got them. My wife got them for me for Christmas, and they're the greatest thing. I have had zero toenail issues since.
I used to just get the toenail rubbing on the other toe.
It's like razor blade at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
But that, when you guys were talking, I was listening to one of you guys' conversations, and you said a brighter light. That's why I sent you guys that link, or sent you my headlamp, and it's really key. I have a waist light. I use a waist light and a headlamp.
I think that's
and it's a good key, and I can just, I don't have to worry about where I step and roll an ankle.
Yeah, I felt like I was really kind of. I could see pretty well, but I never trusted. But I have a level of brightness I didn't turn it to.
You're trying to conserve battery.
And
then you're like,
I have a backup.
That's why I brought two.
I have a backup battery. Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Ed has a really bright waist light.
Yeah, mine's super bright too. I think we have the same one.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's a
flip belt. I have a flip belt, so I have my phone will go in my flip belt, and then the light is a flip belt brand light, and it clicks in there, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's so bright, and it shines on the ground. And so it's weird if I just run with that and I look around, like I can't see anything. I'm like, oh yeah, it's right there.
Right. Yeah, I have a little. Actually, from my bicycle, I have a little thing that I clip on, which sometimes I'll go and just run with that. It's the same kind of thing. I can't see anything, but it lights right in front of my feet. But we both ran in road shoes, and I don't think I needed trail shoes on the course at all. If it got wet, I think.
Yeah, if it got wet, I wore gaiters for the first half, and that helped because I'm not kicking up anything in my shoes, and sometimes I kick up rocks, or someone else will kick up rocks and get in my feet. It's annoying.
But I ran with the shoes, so Atreyu GT and I both running Atreyu.
The ones you're wearing now?
Yeah, they're just minimal. There's nothing here to chafe. It's like having a sock on. But I ran in they have like a carbon fiber race one with the plates underneath. I'm like, this might be the dumbest thing to run this, but it was nice because the plate actually I felt like protected. Like I didn't
like
feel
a rock plate.
Right. Yeah, it worked pretty well. Just consistent landing. Yeah, trail. It's like we both talk about this. Like, I look at the weight of like most trail shoes. I'm like, man, that's double the weight of my running shoe, almost triple the weight. It's like that weight adds up over time.
Yeah, I've never tried like the Hoka's, the big thick heel. I've never tried those. I run in Brooks. That's my street shoe, and then my trail shoe. I found that Ultras. That's the brand for me.
Right.
And I like the shape of the toe box.
Yeah.
And I've tried a couple of different types of the Ultra, and the ones I'm currently using, the Mont Blancs. I've got a couple pair of those now because it felt good, and I know I can get the distance in them before I don't even really need to change them. I just did, kind of to prevent water.
Right.
But
in the end, it's confidence though, like knowing you're going in and this isn't going to be an issue, right?
Because I bought a brand new pair for this race coming up, and I'm like, I ran in them a little bit, and I ran in them over the weekend, but I'm like, they're just a slightly different because they have like a dial for a lacing system versus a lace, and I'm like, I don't want something to go wrong because I'm screwed. I'm going without a support crew, so I'm gonna.
So this race this weekend, 100 mile, no support crew. I was going to ask you about this.
No crew. I don't want to be a burden to anybody.
I love that. I totally get that. I think that's awesome.
I had a friend that said my wife would go if I wanted her to go. A friend that's like, I'll go, but I'm like, I don't want to worry about you finding me. What if you don't find me and I'm like, what if you miss me? I don't want any mental distraction. And I would love the support, but I think mentally it might hurt because I'm going to be worried about the other person's, oh, are they bored? Are they waiting for me? Are they getting any sleep?
So,
are they in a car accident?
Right.
I don't want any unknowns.
Is there aid stations?
Yep. So I'm going to rely on aid stations. I think there's 14 of them. And
I'm guessing you have a pack.
I'm going to run with my pack. I'm going to run with, the only thing that's going to be different is the food that I normally supply on. I'm going to rely on, I'll have a drop bag I'll see 3 times. I'll see it like mile 20, 40, and 60, something like that. And I'm going to put a couple of things in there, but I'm going to rely on aid station food. I mean, I can suffer for 30 hours. If you can fast for 4 days, I think I can make it a few hours without my favorite food.
That's that's a very good point. I mean, honestly, like, so the other idea behind fasting that JT and I have been playing with, I can't think of his name. He holds the 100-mile record. Oh,
Is that bitter?
yeah, and he does a lot of
He's a meat
fasting.
guy.
Right. But he does a lot of the body. If you don't have carbs, your body switches to fat as fuel.
Right.
Kinds of thoughts.
Yep.
And there's something nice. Like, there was a point in the race where I'm like, I don't feel like eating anymore. The things I have.
Uh-huh.
That's one thing I need to switch is more variety of just things to grab. But knowing I'm good. Like
Yep.
I have a little loopiness right now, a little bit of headache. That's going to pass, and now my body's switching over, and I'm good. And Tailwind. This is the first time I've actually used Tailwind, which actually worked pretty good.
And sometimes I don't like the taste of it, even the unflavored. I use Pedialyte.
Yep.
Pedialyte, and I cut it 50-50. That's what I did the whole time for Last Man. And sometimes it was plain water, but most of the time 50-50. I have Premier protein shakes, which are just Walmart brand.
Yep.
And boiled potatoes and hard-boiled eggs. I had some snacky stuff, but I just don't feel it.
Yeah, I think that's Chase swears by Pepsi. He told me that's all he drinks. I don't think I could do that. There's a guy that I'm actually going to have on who's done a couple Ironman. He does potatoes with amino acids in them. I'm like, oh, that might be an interesting thing to make.
I have a branched chain amino acid powder that I drink. I might mix that into for long runs. Like, I might have some in a bottle already made. I don't know if it makes a difference. I like the way it tastes. It doesn't. I'm pretty good with. I can eat with a full stomach and run. I could go eat Thanksgiving dinner and run. Like, my stomach is unaffected by like volume. So luckily, I can do that because like my wife, she can't eat and run. Like, she'll eat at like before Last Man starts at the worst time in the world, noon. And so, like, she's like, I gotta eat lunch before we start, some type of normalcy. We'll have breakfast, but then it's like, she'll try to eat something at like 10, and then at the start, she'll be like, I can feel that sandwich in my stomach. I'm like, oh, I would hate to have to deal with that, because I'll eat just before the gun goes off. Like, I'll eat a sandwich.
I eat so little during that. Pretty much every run I do, almost all my exercise I do, I have no food. Like, I haven't had food for fasting. Almost everything I do is fasting. So, and I usually don't eat for a while after. So, like, that's my biggest. Like, how do I train for eating food? Because I don't normally do it. Like, getting used to that. But GT. So one of our things, we both had an Amato's Italian, and it's just been something in our family. Like, would always be there when we get family get-togethers. And we stopped. It was 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. And we did a faster lap, so we had a little extra time with the family that was there and the Amatos. I sat down. I'm still opening mine. Like, I'm still getting the paper open. He's already down to half. I'm like, what happened to that? Like, he just opened and packed it down. I'm like, and he didn't have any stomach issues, but I sure smelled him the rest of the like, he was farting the whole way.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, I had a pizza slice, but it sounded good at the time when I packed. Like, I'm like, but then you look at it, I'm like, I want it. when I did that, my failed FKT attempt, I bought a pizza and I carried it in my bag. And I carried 3 gallons of water. And that is heavy.
Yeah.
It was very heavy. And so I went through the water faster than I should have, and that's why I ran out. The pizza, though, it was in my bag. I was just like, stunk. It was hot. I'm like, this is gross. And it's like 90 something out. It was the hottest week of July when this timed up. I'm like, man, I just don't want to eat. And I didn't eat. I wasn't really hungry, but that didn't take me out. It was a whole no water thing. I'm like,
Yeah, water's kind of important.
stupid. And I wasn't going to drink from a puddle. I had a life straw, but I'm like, it's all bog water. And going on vacation 2 days later, and if I got like Giardia or something,
Right.
I don't need that. It was just, I'll try again.
And did you have electrolytes in your water, or just water?
I carried a Pedialyte in my bag as well. So it was some, it was pretty poor planning. But
So-
I was confident I was going to get there. I'm like, nah, no problem. But no big deal. I was happy with the solo 100K, and that's farthest I've ever gone point to point. So
That's awesome. Until this weekend.
until this weekend.
So like, you're pretty consistent on your diet, you're pretty consistent on your workouts, but do you have ups and downs? Like, do
Yeah.
you get into funks, and how do you get out of funks?
I just keep going. Like in the morning, especially when it starts to turn cold, right? Nobody wants to go outside when it's cold, and that's usually when like the mood swings, or after I finish an event and I have nothing to plan for. That's when it hits you. It's like depression, and I'm like, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go, and then I go, and then I get back. I'm like, well, I'm glad I went. And if I go to the gym and it's a bad day, and when I'm done, I'm like, I'm glad I went. So I just have to go. It's just discipline. It's just like breathing, right? I'm just gonna breathe. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm not gonna stop. It's part of getting up and going. Like if I woke up, when we took the weekend off in Bar Harbor, and it was like we just woke up without alarms, and it was like, this is great, but I couldn't do this every day. I gotta go. God, I love routine. I love routine so much.
What is it that you have that, like, I've often tried to figure out, like, I mean, we're both addicts at this point, right?
Sure.
But like, to me, it's an amazing path that we're on. You know, like, what my body can do. Well, I've already done, I mean, a marathon, an Ironman, 100 miles, you know, the distances we're doing, like, we're all at some point impossible in my head. I've done impossible multiple times. Like, what's possible? I think it's such a great path that we're on. But I don't get what I have that other people don't.
I think it's just work ethic and drive. Like there's a lot of things that are impossible. You know what? I've been to Everest. I thought that was impossible, but I've been there. I didn't climb it because you need to be a millionaire to do that. But my wife and I trekked to Everest. Like that was impossible. That's never going to happen in your life. I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to get there. Same concept. Like I have big goals. I'll get there. Just a matter of time. Just going to keep pushing. I don't know what's next as far as goals. I don't have anything like, oh, I want to try to do 115 hours. Like that's nuts.
Right.
I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But I just like to keep doing what most people think is impossible because I know it's not. I just like working hard.
And there's such, like you said, but you don't feel like going to the gym or whatever, but you never regret it.
No, never.
And I think that's just something that most people haven't figured out. I personally don't really. I run because running's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I can swim and get a good workout, maybe even a better workout. But running's harder for me. I constantly have to. It's a mental challenge every run.
Yep.
There's some days it feels great. Most days it doesn't. I'm working through something. I'm dealing. Because it's hard, it makes it rewarding.
Yeah.
Doing easy things that aren't rewarding.
I don't have a set mileage agenda. Like sometimes it's 35 miles in a week, or it's 50 miles, sometimes it's 70 miles. I don't know what I'm doing. I just wing it. And I'm like, oh, I got to do a long run today, so I'll make sure I take all the turns that get me the furthest away from my house. And then I'm like, well, I'm 12 miles away from home. Well, if I go back now, I'm going to hit 24. But if I turn this way, I'll probably get 27. So that's just kind of like, I try to give myself the hardest path back. And when I get back, I'm like, I feel good, I feel awesome. And then it's like, it's only 6 o'clock and I just ran a marathon. Wow, what else am I going to do today? Oh, I guess I got to go to work. So I just love working hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people think I'm crazy, but that's okay.
Right.
That's where I want to be.
Right. I was telling Chase this last winter, the biggest storm of the year. My plow crapped out. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna shovel the driveway. I got this. Like, wasn't even. It's gonna be all day just shoveling snow, but I know I can handle it. It's cool knowing your body can handle things. Yeah, like I'm up to the challenge. This is just another challenge. Let's do it.
Yep.
Luckily, some nice guy saw me shoveling and came and plowed me out.
It's a long
I
driveway.
appreciate it because it would have been a long, cold day. But yeah,
No, I just like working hard. I mean, I do that with my job. I work almost every day. So weekends I work. I work for my father's company, and then I do the same thing for myself. I have my own customers, and so like I don't have kids, which is a benefit of being free. But I don't want to neglect my wife, where I'm like I never see her.
right.
So we make time together, but she understands that I work hard because I'm ambitious and I have big goals, and I want to do things. I don't want to be stressed. So being able to, these races aren't cheap. Like it's a commitment for the weekend. We got to board our dogs. We both have a registration, to get into the race. We got food and gas and hotels. So it's an easy $1,000 weekend to do something like Last
Right.
Man.
Right.
So I work hard to make sure that the funds aren't taken from our mortgage, because this is a hobby.
Right. Right.
I mean, this is a lifestyle, and it's not just a pair of running shoes.
Right.
It
Started there.
started there, but it's like I need cold weather gear, because the first winter I ran, it was like I had like a long sleeve shirt, and I ran Millinocket in like a single like cotton t-shirt. And as I did more races, I collected more shirts, and then I ended up buying gear because I didn't even have a watch. I just used my phone, right?
Right.
Didn't even really need to do that, but start somewhere. And I'm like, and then I got like some cheap GPS watch. I'm like, I'm never going to use a watch. But now it's like, does it really count if you don't record it? So
Yeah. Every time we stroll through Freeport, I have my couple, North Face and Oakley, like who's got cheap stuff that I can Under Armour, like sale rack scourging for cheap running finds.
and I'm just thankful that I can recover quick, because I think if I struggled, then maybe I wouldn't have what I have, because I feel like so many people have aches and pains, and I don't know if I could battle through that. So I'm happy that I want to take care of myself now, and hopefully it just carries on through life. I'm 37, I'll be 38 in a month, and I still feel better than I did in my 20s, that's for sure.
Yeah. And when you look at somebody like Ed, right?
Yeah.
57. I mean, I'm halfway between you and him.
Yep.
But it's like, wow, he's still doing it? There's no reason I can't be.
And he's unstoppable. I talked to him. This was the first year I ever talked to him, because he knows who I am now. Because last year, like when I stuck around with him, they're like, because it's like, where did you come from, kind of thing. And then this year, he's like, oh, Jason. I'm like, wow, you knew my name. Like, that's cool. And he just was like, I'm glad to see you're still hanging in there. And he goes, I'm like, I hope it's me and you to the end, Ed. That's like my goal. And then when I saw how fresh him and the other guy looked, I'm like, man, I took myself out. But it's cool. It's super impressive to see, people that just can just go the distance.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, traveling, that's kind of like your something you and your wife try to do. Any like favorite destinations? And something I love to do wherever I go. If I go somewhere for work or wherever, I love getting up and exploring on runs, like in a completely new city, place. But I've ended up in some pretty sketchy situations too.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, you don't want to get too far off the strips. I found out pretty quickly.
And that's where all the back alley stuff happens.
I came around the corner to, there was a gas station, like 6 people kind of like materialized and started like heading towards me, like, well, this isn't good. What? Turn around and go the other way.
Definitely Nepal is probably my top. Going to Nepal and doing the Everest Base Camp trek, it was like, I think it's around 70 miles round trip of trekking. That was pretty cool. I have nothing bad to say about the people and the cleanliness, and it's just amazing. It's not like oh, there's bodies and there's poop everywhere. It's not true. It's so clean. It's so isolated. There was like 200 people on the trail, and spread out amongst all those miles. That's how many park passes were issued when I was there. It was all walks of life could do it. It was just something that was just beautiful, so beautiful. And then we just did Croatia this summer, which was pretty cool. We ran a little bit, but it was like 90 as soon as you woke up, and I was fine with taking a break. And then in February we're actually going to train to climb Kilimanjaro, so that's next.
Wow. Can't imagine what's involved in that.
I don't know, it's like 19,000 something, but we're February 5th, that's when it starts. So
Yeah, I've climbed Katahdin.
we just did it for the first time.
It's a reasonably challenging little mountain.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. My wife did it this year with me on 4th of July, and then I did it last year with my friend Brad in September, right after last man. And it's cool.
Yeah, I've done it quite a few times, and my daughters were young, and when they were young, they just monkey up the mountain. It was so, my daughter's 10 or whatever,
Yeah.
she's flying up the mountain. And she'd coming down, she'd tell everybody, "You're almost there, you're almost there." And at one point, I'm like, at some point, you got to start telling people they're not there. So then she switched it up. She's like, "You've got a long ways to go," and you see people completely unprepared for like being on. They thought they were just going for a hike, like a little hike, and not realizing. And this little girl's telling you, "Yeah, I took my daughters in there, my youngest when she was my biggest mistake as a father, and my proudest moment at the same time for together. We did Knife's Edge. She was like 9, and we got into it. We're pretty far, and she's like, "Dad, my toes are bugging me." I took off her shoes. She had 2 ingrown toenails that were completely inflamed. She's terrified of the heights at this point, and it's like, "Dad, how am I going to get off this mountain?" I'm like, "One step at a time." And we had to. My wife's calling the state police. She's calling everybody because I haven't checked in. I expected to be off, and we got off at like 10 o'clock at night.
It's a long day.
But she did it. It's like I'm disappointed in myself for putting her in that spot where danger was real, but it's like, you did that. Like, now you know you can achieve things. So yeah, I have so many other things I didn't get to.
We can do part 2.
Yeah, and I definitely want to know more about how this race goes this weekend.
Yeah, with a follow-up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. It was fun. I know what to expect. So got my podcast virginity now. So.
There you go. Yeah, so JT started a podcast, and he's like, "Hey, I want you on as my first guest," because I was doing my first Ironman, and I went and sat down with him. He paid some place in Portland, and we were in their little studio. And I'm like, I really like that. And then he kind of stopped with it. It was just too much of a commitment doing different things. And I'm like, I'm going to just start doing this. As much of it, I think the running and stuff like this, it's like challenging yourself. And this is not, I told you in my email, I can't stand small talk. Like I feel like I'm allergic to it. I try to be better at it. I try not to just be quiet to everybody, but getting to actually talk to somebody, or especially about something that I'm totally interested in. And I love seeing the stuff you're doing. I really do.
Yeah, I try to keep a good variety going, and I run and I lift.
I want to get the flag thing. That's on my list.
Flag.
I guess.
You can let's see. I don't see anything.
Yeah.
things, get a ladder.
Yeah, it's,
You can do it on a little giant ladder.
I'll rig up something, even if I have to put a couple posts.
You just had like a pull-up bar.
Yep.
You can get it, and then it's harder because you have to push off the wall.
Right.
So I can do that sometimes.
Yeah. That's definitely on my list.
I'm going to show you how to do a stand-up pike on your live weight only lead.
Absolutely.
I did inchworm across.
I want to see it. All right. Thanks again, and we'll definitely do this
Got it.
again soon.
Thank you.